Well, it's the beginning of September, meaning that it is a prime time for horror movies, stores are starting to put out spooky decorations, and Spirit Halloweens are opening literally in every single dead Toys R Us and Kmart on your street. But most relevant to this video, it is the opening of Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights. So in today's video, we'll be discussing why exactly this year is kind of a letdown compared to other years, and just what I think they can do to, improve in future years of Halloween Horror Nights. Now, we'll be only doing a select number of houses because there are a lot of houses and not all of them are actually too bad. We might do a sequel to this video depending on how it does, so if you want to see a sequel to the Halloween Horror Nights video, put your comments down below. Now, the houses that we'll be talking about today are mainly the more like licensed movie ones, and just that's kind of one of the biggest issues in my opinion about this year is the licensed or like the movies that they went with for their choices. Now, I do think Stranger Things and The Exorcist and Chucky, those are all really cool concepts. Even like The Last of Us, they're all really unique and cool concepts. But I just feel like the way they're executed wasn't really too well. And now this is kind of just like generally speaking for this year that I've noticed a lot compared to other years. I do think that the set pieces on a lot of these haunts are really, really good, especially like Stranger Things and The Exorcist Believer. Those are really like cool and super intricate and detailed haunts, and I just think they did a fantastic job on these set pieces and like the sound design and all that kind of good stuff, the lighting, everything like that, even the actors. But it's just that they're not scary. Halloween Horror Nights is known to be probably one of the most intense Halloween events in the entire theme park industry, especially in the Orlando area. Whenever you have, Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, and then you have Halloween Horror Nights, which is like big people stuff, right? So for it to not be too scary, it's just kind of like a letdown, honestly. Now, we're going to talk about the Stranger Things one for a bit. This one's one of my favorite ones just because I love Stranger Things. Who doesn't? It's Stranger Things, right? Especially season 4. Now, whenever I talk about scary, I don't necessarily mean like the environment isn't scary, because it kind of is. They did a fantastic job with the environment, especially the whole Vecna area. It looks just like out of the show. It's super impressive, and just I know walking through this thing, I haven't got the chance to walk through it, of course, because it just opened. But I know walking through this haunt probably feels really creepy and just very uneasy, very intense. But you gotta have the jump scares with the haunts. There's a difference between the feeling of a creepy feeling, a creepy atmosphere, and actually getting scared and jumping and screaming. I actually do a home haunt myself, so I kind of am familiar with the concept of this stuff, even though it's nowhere near as good, obviously, as Halloween Horror Nights. I'm an amateur, at best. I still get somewhat of the idea of this. So Stranger Things is a really cool haunt, but it's just not scary, and it's mostly kind of just scenes from the show, which it's still cool, it's whatever, but I feel like they could have done a lot more, especially with the whole Vecna stuff. Now, as far as Chucky goes, this one is for sure my least favorite one so far. I just don't like this one. It's called Chucky Ultimate Kill Count, and it's basically kind of like an homage to all the Chucky movies and stuff. And while that could have been a cool concept and the set pieces look alright, it's definitely the most bland one in my opinion. The set pieces, they look alright, but they're nothing compared to what we just saw with Stranger Things and what we're going to see with some other haunts. They're just very plain. I mean, you go through here and you see like a lot of plain Jane walls and stuff like that, and I get that's kind of in favor of the movie, but I mean, it's Chucky. Chucky's a pretty gory franchise. You could have had a lot more blood and gore and just scarier elements on the wall and stuff like that. Now, another thing I do have to say as far as the jump scares go is that they used a lot of puppets and dolls, which I can appreciate that because it's physical props that look like Chucky himself. But I would have much rather have actors maybe in a Chucky costume from time to time just to get a bit more of that scare element that dolls and animatronics can't really do. Especially whenever you watch the Chucky films and then you come here and see this, the Chucky doll or animatronic in the films, whether he's CGI or animatronic mostly, he looks very lifelike. The way he moves and talks, like the way like his facial features are, he looks very human, like humanoid, but just in that doll form, of course. Here you can tell it's a fake prop. You can tell it's so stiff, it's fake. It doesn't work well, honestly, and I feel like the whole ultimate kill count concept of it was completely missed with this haunt. I just feel like there was a lot of things that just could have been done better in general with the Chucky kill count haunt, and it just in general, I think it's definitely one of the most underwhelming Halloween Horror Nights ever. This is like the only cool room in my opinion with all the Chucky Child's Play Good Guy boxes around there, and then that one Chucky pops out. But even then, the Chucky doll itself is just so fake looking. It looks like a Spirit Halloween decoration they can get for like $50. It's just not good. And the only like actual good scare is that one that you just saw right there where Chucky's like hanging on to some guy's body. That's a pretty creative jump scare, I'll admit to that. And then the whole Christmas area of this section is actually pretty cool in my opinion. I wish we'd get a more Christmas themed haunts. I think that would be pretty unique and cool, kind of like Krampus. But I did like this part of the haunt for sure. But other than that, there's just not much like going for. Like this room right here is like just so bland to me, like a black wall with a bunch of floating Chuckies. They could have just executed it a bit better. I like the concept, but the execution just could have been so much better. Now we have ourselves The Last of Us. Now this one, I've never played the game before, so I really don't have much to compare it to, but honestly, this one's not too terrible. The set pieces on it do look pretty good, I have to say. But again, it just kind of has the same issue. It's not like too scary, and I'm going to kind of go into a little topic on this specific one. Everything just seems so scripted, and I saw a comment on this from another video from Attractions 360, and it was basically saying how like these actors and stuff are like said to do this specific line or jump scare every 10 seconds, and if you're a person walking through this haunted house, you can hear all these different jump scares and screams going on every few seconds. So it's so programmed and planned out, and it's just not like, it takes away that surprise factor. And they said this, and I agree with this to a certain extent, that Universal should let their actors kind of be a bit more creative with the scares. They should kind of let them spread out a bit more and do a bit more different things just to make the experience really different and unique for each guest. And I feel like especially for a haunt like The Last of Us, where I feel like jump scares are just such a prominent thing, especially with like the actors and stuff, I feel like, they just really needed to be a bit more out there with the jump scares versus having them be so just programmed, every like 5 seconds or so. Again, just like the others, really cool set pieces. All these Halloween Horror Nights are all pretty impressive, except for the Chucky one, in my opinion. All of these are like on a whole different level than what any other theme park company can offer. So I'm not completely dissing on these things, saying it's like horrible. It's trash. Miles better than mine, of course, but it's just they're not really, I feel like, comparable to what they used to have back then. Now we have one of my favorite ones, which this one it's such a unique and cool concept, and I love haunts that tell a story throughout them, and this one does just that. This one I feel like wasn't trying to be so much of a jump scare centered haunt, and it was supposed to tell more of a story. Basically, the story of this one was a musician who plays the guitar wants to be famous, so he makes a deal with like the devil or something to become famous. It's called The Darkest Deal. Really unique story, and it's just such an interesting one for Halloween Horror Nights, and it has a really cool like setting, like a southern setting to it, which is just a very unique setting we don't see a whole lot with Halloween Horror Nights. Overall, this one was okay. Like I said, the concept and the story of it were really, really good, but it's just the execution, again, was really strange to me. I feel like the first few rooms in this one were just really, really cool looking, especially like that shadow of the demon like possessing the man as he was performing. Really, really, just unique and just cool and kind of creepy. It had this like really cool story element to it, and like I said, it's not like it was trying to be so much of like a jump scare scary haunt as much as it was trying to just tell a story here. My issue with it, however, is whenever it kind of expands or seems to kind of, travel away from that whole story element and kind of just becomes a random jump scare haunt. The average guest walking through this kind of won't understand what's going on. I kind of barely understood what was going on, to be honest. I don't really understand a lot of the scenes in this haunt. Like the cook scene was a little weird to me. It just doesn't make much sense. I mean, I get like all these people are like possessed or something, or there's like they're, dead zombies or whatever, but it just strays away from the whole The Darkest Deal kind of story a lot, and it just kind of ruins it for me at the very end. So I don't know. This one, like I said, had probably one of the coolest stories. The first few rooms of this one were really, really good, and just overall, I feel like this one had so much potential, but it kind of got a little flat afterwards. Now we have what's probably one of my favorite ones, which is Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins. Now this one's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. This one's an original one by Universal along with The Darkest Deal, taking the origins of one of their new official Halloween Horror Night characters, Dr. Oddfellow. Now, of course, this one kind of takes place in a more like vintage circus kind of style, which I love the vintage circus stuff. That's one of my favorite Halloween themes. It's just a vintage old school circus with old school clowns. And in general, I do think this one was actually a pretty well done haunt. I'm not going to lie. I think the jump scares in this one were all pretty solid, and the costumes on the jump scare actors were pretty unique and different. And I get their clowns, they're kind of all wacky and zany, but it was pretty good overall. The set pieces, again, in this one were just amazing. And just overall, there's really not too much bad to say about this one. It's mostly good stuff in my opinion. My only kind of complaint with this one, which is not really much of a complaint with this one specifically, as it kind of is just in general, is I feel like they do need to be a little bit more creative as far as the placements of their jump scares go. Because a lot of the times the jump scares are kind of just in like the most expected spots, like you have like a little corner in a wall and it's like, oh yeah, there's going to be an actor behind that corner. However, this one, while it does have some of those issues, this one involves curtains a lot, because a circus, of course, is going to have a lot of curtains and, sheets and stuff like that, and they utilize that to the extreme with this one. So while it kind of falls flat with some of their jump scares in the corners and stuff like that, I do think that they definitely utilize what they have with the theming, and again, it just makes this one super just well done overall. But yeah, see, not every single Halloween Horror Nights this year is too terrible, and kind of ironically, it's the original ideas that are kind of the best, in my opinion, for this year. Now, of course, it could just sort of be in favor of the fact that what they chose for this year, as far as like the movies go, wasn't really the best option, especially compared to like last year's lineup, as far as the movie franchises go. Like that was a really good lineup last year. This year was kind of okay, in my opinion. The only really good one I think was Stranger Things, and the new Exorcist movie hasn't even come out yet, so I don't know why they chose that one. But I do have a good feeling about next year. I feel like next year is going to be a really cool year for the lineup as far as the movie franchises go for their picks. And then we'll see what else they come out with for the originals, because they do have a lot of good original haunts and attractions. However, in today's video, I did want to focus more on the movie side of things, just because I feel like there's just somewhat of an issue with those. But anyways, guys, please tell me down in the comments below, what do you think of Halloween Horror Nights 2023? Do you think that they nailed it with this one? Again, the set pieces, the haunts themselves are all really good. I just feel like they need a little bit more work with the jump scares, the creativity with the jump scares, and just not making them so staged and programmed, because I feel like that just ruins the scare a lot. But again, guys, tell me down in the comments below, what do you think of Halloween Horror Nights? And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.